Here we go in three, two, one.
Folks, what is up? And welcome back to the Vol Talk podcast. Blake and Austin are here again to talk about the Tennessee Volunteers. Specifically, this episode, Austin, we are going to be focusing heavily on the basketball team and specifically this game that we dropped to Auburn. Very unfortunate loss, very difficult, close loss, heartbreaker. We're going to get into that. We're going to preview a little bit of this upcoming week. We got another big game coming up this week, but man, all eyes are on, and most of the folks who are watching this episode, I'm sure, are here because, man, what a heartbreaker of a loss did we have against number one ranked Auburn this past Saturday.
Yeah, it was a heartbreaker. Really tough fought game. Really physical game throughout. I mean, they kept mentioning that on the broadcast, how physical of a game it was. And frankly, dude, through like the first half and most of the second half, I felt like they officiated the game pretty well. Honestly, that was my takeaway from it. I thought the officiating was fair through most of the game. But when it came down to the last 2 minutes, the most crucial last 2 minutes of the game, it was very biased, home cooking officiating for Auburn, and that's honestly what ended up making us lose that game, in my opinion. I don't like to bellyache about officials, but some of the like high leverage calls in that game when we had an opportunity to put it away was really the difference, frankly. And like I said, they were unbiased most of the time. Like they let most things go. They were letting the game be physical, which I can appreciate from referees when, especially considering the matchup. Right? I mean, Auburn likes to play a very physical brand of basketball. Tennessee likes to play a very physical brand of basketball, and they were letting that go for most part. So why change it up the last 2 minutes? I mean, it was really brutal, frankly. But yeah, man, I mean, really, the biggest call, the highest leverage call in the entire game was when we inbounded to Akpara. He had the ball. He was getting hooked, so obviously getting hooked. Then they call travel, and Auburn gets the ball back. We had the lead at that point. I can't remember if it was like a 2 point lead or how big the lead was at that point, but we had the lead with the possession of the ball, with an opportunity to make it a at least two-score game, and it was taken away from us. And even the broadcast, even Jay on the broadcast was saying how it was a terrible no call. A terrible no call should have been called on Auburn. It was called a travel on Okpara, and that's really what kind of shifted the momentum in the game. Another extremely high leverage call in that game was when Jordan Gainey fouled out. His fifth foul was just terrible. A terrible call in my opinion. It shouldn't have been a foul. And honestly, that cost us, dude, because Jordan Gainey, as you know, has really been our most clutch player. Like in those crucial moments, Jordan Gainey has been the only guy to show that he can get it done in last second shot situations. I mean, he had the game winning layup against Illinois, huge win on the road. So taking Jordan Gainey out of that situation was very costly. I mean, very costly, and I'll get into that too and the discussion about the last shot we took, but yeah, man, those two calls in particular all happened within the last 2 minutes of the game, which ultimately, I believe, cost us the game.
Very frustrating when officiating has that kind of effect. And to your point, that's kind of why you hope that the officiating doesn't change drastically at the very end of the game, because you've been calling a consistent game throughout, and then at the end you make calls that are different than kind of that precedence that you have set for the game, and it affects another team. Affects one of the teams significantly. It's frustrating when the officiating is at that point. It's one thing if an officiating crew makes a bad call at the end, and you're like, man, I disagree with that call, but they've been making those calls all night, right? And so, yeah, I think you're kind of hitting the nail on the head in terms of the frustration there. And look, we're fans, and so obviously we're going to feel that way. That's any fan base does that when it comes to officiating. But when the broadcast also points it out,
Exactly.
then you're like, okay, especially because we know that most sports broadcasters are no fans of Tennessee.
That's true. I mean, it does. I mean, I think in all fairness, I think every fan watching a sports broadcast, if the game's not going their way, they think it's biased towards their team. But it does feel that way sometimes. It does feel like there are some Tennessee bias in a bad way when it comes to sports broadcasting. And yeah, I mean, it was the one call all night, the Akpar travel, which should have been called a hook, that the broadcast was just eviscerating. I mean, they were like, "This is a terrible call," and it's fine if it's a terrible call in the first half, 10 minutes into the game. But we're talking with a minute left. Okay, a minute 30 left. We have the lead. We could put the game away. We could put it in a situation where Auburn has to foul us to try to get us to miss free throws and win that way. They take that opportunity away from us and hand Auburn possession. I mean, it was a really, really bad call. But hey, overall, big picture, even though we go back to our Auburn preview, which was brief. We don't do a lot of talking on the previews. But one thing we said was we just want it to be a good game. We want us to fight. We don't want to have another Florida situation because really we still are learning about this team, dude. We're still learning what the ceiling on this team is. And if you can go into in Auburn, right, number one team in the country, consensus number one team in the country, there's no debate right now. It's 100% Auburn. And almost win that game and should have won that game despite the officials. Like at the end of the day, really happy with the performance. Really happy with the performance. Hate the outcome. Extremely happy with the performance though. They fought tough all night. Defense was fantastic. They fought so hard defensively and unfortunately came up short. I think we shouldn't have, but we did. It's unfortunate. But one thing I think we have to talk about, dude, is the final shot. So the final shot of the game, we have an opportunity. We're down 2, and we're on the road. So in my eyes, the right call is to try to shoot a 3 and win the game because you're the underdog. You're on the road. I'm fine with us shooting a 3. But essentially what happened is we inbound it to Zakai. He immediately almost looked like a panic shot, even though it could have been the call. That could have been the call they drew up because we had a timeout, right? We call a timeout before we inbound it. So they're drawing up a play during that timeout. They're specifically drawing up a play probably for Zakai, and it seemed like it was the play call. Seemed like a bad play call, even though I am fine with shooting a 3, but they just inbound it, and he basically shoots a corner 3, panic, lobs it up, and bricks it off. And listen, I get it. We're trying to get a rebound in that situation. We're trying to get a rebound. That's why you're taking that shot with a potential rebound instead of waiting to the last second shot of the game. But nobody was in position. It was just really ugly, dude. They either drew it up poorly or it was poorly executed or both. It seemed like a little bit of both to me. I didn't love the play call. The execution was terrible. And listen, Zakai missing the shots, whatever, but he didn't even get his feet set. Like, it wasn't a clean shot. Like, it was just going to be a very tough shot to make. And to me, it seemed obvious that they didn't know who they wanted in that position. They didn't know who they wanted to take that final shot because Jordan Gainey was out. I believe if Jordan Gainey was in that game, Jordan Gainey would have taken the last shot. I really believe that. You saw in the Vanderbilt game earlier in this year, in the clutch, who did they want to take the last shot? Chaz. They gave the ball to Chaz. They said, go get a bucket. And he didn't do it. He couldn't do it. He couldn't do that, and he screwed up the final free throws in that game. So I do not think they wanted Chaz to take the last shot. And listen, I'm fine with Zakai taking the shot. I really am. Zakai has been at least the most consistent player overall performance-wise. Now listen, he had the most points in this game. It's not like he was great scoring the basketball in this game. But at the end of the day, I'm fine with Zakai taking the last shot. It's the play call I had a problem with. It's the execution, being in position for a rebound I had a problem with. And it's very obvious to me without Jordan Gainey, this team does not have a guy that you can rely on to hit a last shot. I mean, I just don't think the coaching staff wanted Chaz with the ball. I don't. And I don't blame him because the one opportunity he had this year, he completely screwed it up. So, yeah, I mean, that's my take on that, dude.
Yeah, I think, and Chaz didn't have a great game anyway. In this Auburn game, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he scored on 2 of 6 not free throw, 3-point shots. Yeah, he was 2 of 6 on 3. And so it's not like he had a fantastic
Yeah.
percentage in this game, but overall, I mean, I think you're probably right. I don't. He's kind of shown at least the past month that he's not the go-to guy. And like you said, I'm fine with Zakai being that go-to guy in his absence if we don't have Jordan Gainey available. But I mean, do you think it's fair to say that? Because I agree with you in terms of the performance, right? Listen, there's no moral victories in sports, okay? You either win or you lose, and we lost, okay? But in terms of the performance, like we were talking about prior to this game and the preview, and like you noted, we wanted that. We wanted to see a good performance to see what this team was made of, and we got that. So I mean, do you kind of agree that overall we're not happy with the game because we lost, but we're happy with the performance? Maybe even all the way through to the end, just kind of unhappy with that final scheming and coaching.
Yeah, I'm fine with the performance. The performance is fine. I think my take on Chaz in this game, because you mentioned his poor shooting, is that he just listen. We have to accept that on the road this season he has been a liability. I mean, he is the worst defender on the floor. He shoots the ball, but not well on the road. I mean, he has not shown in SEC play. He has been horrendous on the road this year. So, I mean, we are not going to be able to rely on him offensively. And you saw that in this game. I mean, everything seemed so difficult on offense. It really did. It seemed so difficult to get anybody going. Like, anytime a shot fell, it was a miracle. Like, I was like, oh, this is a miracle. We finally had a shot fall. So, I mean, to your point, kind of talking about Chaz, it's like not only has he not shown up in past clutch situations throughout the season, but he also wasn't like spectacular in this game. If he was having like a spectacular shooting night, then it's like, okay, sure, let Chaz take the final shot. But dude, you can't, especially on the road this year, you can't be convinced that Chaz Lanier is the best offensive player. I mean, I'm just not convinced of that. Look at how he's performed on the road. It's just not been good. So listen, I think, yes, overall to your question, I think I'm fine with the performance throughout. I don't like the final play call. Listen, I'm fine with Zakai doing it. It's just the call itself, the play itself was poorly executed, poorly drawn up in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, overall, the team fought really hard. I mean, it's a very tough assignment, dude. Extremely tough assignment. And defensively, I thought overall they were pretty awesome. Especially Meshack, dude. Meshack was really awesome in this game. He's just so tenacious on defense, dude. And then Zakai as well. I mean, you talked about this Zakai. Even though he missed that final shot, he was by far the MVP in this game. He is the only guy that I feel like can slightly create his own shot, and the only reason I say slightly is because he's too small. Like, he can get to the rim, but most of the time he stops because he knows if he tries to lay it up, it's just going to get blocked because he's so tiny. But yeah, man, I mean, he was really the only guy that seemed like could create something on the offense in this game, even though he wasn't perfect, obviously. But I think, because you also mentioned moral victories, it's not a moral victory that we only lost by 2. It sucks. I know none of the players feel that way, but I think if you're projecting out the rest of the season, like how we're going to perform in the SEC tournament or how we're going to perform in March, this is a good sign. This is a good sign, because if we went out and had another performance like we did against Florida or something similar where it just wasn't competitive, then okay, that tells us that we're not going to be able to compete with the best of the best in the conference, and we're not going to be able to compete with the best of the best in college basketball as a whole. But this game told me that we can. We can compete with the best team in the country on their floor with unfavorable officiating in the final 2 minutes of the game. So, if this is a neutral court, right, and there is not unfavorable officiating in the last 2 minutes of that game, then we could have won a game like this. And if we can beat Auburn, we can beat any team in the country. So that was encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're hitting the nail on the head. But folks, I mean, let us know in the comments. What do you guys think? We appreciate you joining us for this episode. If you haven't already, throw a like on the video. We'd appreciate that. But let us know in the comments. What do you think about the performance? Were you happy with it? Were you disappointed? What do you, and kind of what Austin's talking about right now? Do you think he's hitting the nail on the head? That this allows us to project out into the future for this season and essentially is a favorable sign for us. I tend to agree, but let us know what you guys think in the comments. And quick point of clarification, Austin, you mentioned Ziegler is tiny. We want to make a revision to that statement. He's tiny relative to basketball and in the basketball context. As two gentlemen who are near Zakai Ziegler's size, that's just an important clarification. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, yes, definitely. If you're comparing him to the average height, I was obviously talking about in context of the basketball court. He's clearly the most tiny person out there.
It reminds me of that picture I sent you. I think it was last season. Do you remember that picture I sent you? And I don't think it was Edie. It might have been Edie, but Zakai was. It was another like 7 foot tall dude that he was going, handling the ball against in the SEC, and it's just this picture of Zakai Ziegler and this giant dude, and he's just working. He's just like working this guy with no fear. That's what I love about Zakai, man. Because you're right, he is tiny relative to the rest of the court, but man, he plays with so much heart and just no fear.
That's true,
except
man.
for when he gets to the basket and obviously knows that he's going to get blocked. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And he honestly did make a couple acrobatic layups in this game. But yeah, dude, it does speak to Zakai's greatness because I mean he's the smallest dude out there, yet he plays the hardest every game. And without him, we're not in this basketball game. I mean, I'm not gonna judge Zakai by his 4 for 15 because. Listen, he's not meant to take 15 shots. Like, we got a guy like Chaz Lanier, so he could do that. But why would you let Chaz Lanier? Listen, Chaz Lanier played the least out of every starter in this game. I can tell you why. The reason why is because if he's missing from 3, he's useless. I mean, there is no point in having him out there. I mean, I like not to be harsh about it, but that's just the reality. If he can't score, he can't do anything. But Zakai, he does everything. Like if Zakai's having a bad shooting night, well, that's fine. He's locking up the other guard, and he's passing the ball super well. He's running the offense. Like, he does so many things that it's fine if he shoots poorly because, that's really not what he's there to do. And then also I have to, because, listen, I've been hyping up Igor Milicic. Okay, I will say, I will have to
get
admit.
Get us some Milicic watch, man. We got to check in on that.
Yes, great value Joker. Listen, it was a step back. I'm just going to be honest. He didn't play his best. But I'm going to defend him because I feel like he could make more noise offensively, but it's like he hasn't gotten the green light to do so, and he kind of plays that way. He's like, once he gets the ball, he's like, well, coach told me to try to find Chaz or Zakai or, Gainey. Like, I have to get rid of the ball. It's like, dude, sometimes I wish he would just handle it more or get in the low post, try to make a move, try to do something, try to create his own shot more. I don't know if he's just told, hey, don't do it or what. But he wasn't the best in this game. I'm just going to be honest. He wasn't the best. Really, our bigs, like I said, we were good defensively, which we were, like 100% good overall defensively, but our bigs were getting bullied in this game. I mean, Auburn had this dude, man. What is this dude's name? Let me find it. So, yeah, Auburn center, whoever this guy is. Yeah, Broom. Apparently he don't even start, dude, which is insane. Broom. He's insane, dude. He was bullying Akpara, man. Just backing him down. They would literally get to the ball to Broom in the low post, and he would just back him down every possession. And that's how Auburn scored. Like, I guess, like, Bruce Pearl made an adjustment. It's like, hey, just get to the ball to the low post, let Broom do his thing. That's the only way we're going to get any offense in this game, and that's really what it turned into. Broom had 16 and 13.
Yeah.
So
16 points, 13 rebounds.
Yes, exactly. I mean, and it showed, man. The dudes, our big guys were getting bullied in this game. That's the one area defensively that we just weren't great in this game. But other than that, it was good defensively. But yeah, man. Cade Phillips didn't put up a lot of numbers, but in the limited minutes he played, I thought he was doing some good things. Like I had in my notes that, like, especially I think it was in the first half, he just kept making a couple big time plays. So I have to shout him out. Dubar only had 1 minute. I'm just finding, I guess the coaching staff has just lost all faith in him. It is kind of unfortunate because it's starting to be apparent that this team is like lacking depth, like pretty bad. Like we have 6 guys making heavy contributions, 7 if you count Cade Phillips. I thought he did some good things in this game. It doesn't show on the stat sheet, but I was like, dang, he's making some good plays. But yeah, man, we're gonna have to find someone else off the bench to contribute, because I mean we can't be a 5 to 7 team or player team, right? We have to have some more contributors. So hopefully Dubar can get it together, earn the trust of the coaching staff again. But yeah, dude, I mean overall, good performance defensively. Listen, it's a Rick Barnes team, right? It's a good defense, rough offense at times, and you saw that again, right? So I don't expect it to change, especially since like last year it changed because you have Dalton Connect. You just give Dalton Connect the ball if we're having a rough day offensively. Don't even run an offense. Just give Dalton the ball, let him do his thing. Well, that doesn't exist this year. So when it's a rough day offensively, it's going to be a rough day offensively, and that's really what you saw.
In terms of, well, first of all, I just want to say, the Vol Talk podcast has put the house on the Igor Milicic stock.
Correct.
And so we hope, he finds a stride, especially offensively, because we are heavily invested in that stock position. And so we're still riding that rocket to the moon. But talking about what you're talking about with finding some help off the bench, finding another contributor. Do you feel like you mentioned with Lanier that the coaching staff apparently hasn't been isn't putting as much trust in him now, and you kind of saw that in this game? Do you think that's indicative of them finally kind of I don't want to say realizing, but almost saying, hey, agreeing essentially with the point that you've made the past couple episodes of like, look, if he's not able to produce what we need him to produce, then we're going to have to start mixing up the game plan a little bit and start getting some more looks from some other folks, especially off the bench. I mean, like you said, I mean, Lanier had 27 minutes, Gainey had 25 and probably would have had 27 or more had he not fouled out, right? So do you think that's kind of indicative of the coaching staff kind of starting to agree with you in a sense?
I think they know what he is. Like he's a 3-point shooter, and he needs to shoot off the pass and the catch and shoot. So that's what he is, and that's how they've used him. I mean, I think they do realize that because if they didn't, then he would have got the ball in the final seconds of the game.
Yeah.
But he didn't. They gave it to Zakai because Zakai's your best player, or at least he was your best player on the floor at that time. So, yeah, dude. I mean, listen, like Chaz he's going to contribute, right? We've seen him have great games. He played well against Mississippi State. He played really well against Arkansas. He's going to do that at times, and maybe once we're on a neutral court in the tournament, in the SEC tournament, and in March in the big tournament, maybe he'll contribute then. But on the road, dude, it's just conference play on the road has not been kind to Lanier whatsoever. And it's so obvious he's the worst defender, dude. Like, it's so obvious. If you just watch him, any little pump fake he'll jump at. I mean, he just can't set his feet. He's not good defensively. It's very clear. But yeah, I mean, he had 27 minutes for a reason in this game. It was an extremely physical game. Like that was the game throughout. Nobody was shooting well. So when it's a physical game, a defensive game, and you're not relying on the jump shot, that's when Chaz Lanier is not going to be in the game. I mean, he does not fit the description of a physical, hard-nosed basketball game. So that's why he didn't have as many minutes in this game. But again, like, not to be too hard on him, it's just lowering expectations, right? We're lowering expectations. We don't have an elite offensive player this year, and he's limited. He's very limited in what he can do. But there will be games where he's awesome. He's awesome, and like that's good to have. It's nice to have. It's just not something we're going to be able to rely on, and that's been very clear. It was clear in this game.
And hopefully, again, like you talked about, hopefully this is a good sign, even though it was a loss. Hopefully it's a good sign that, hey, we can find a way to win in spite of that. Like you're talking about, find a way to, when we're on those neutral sites, when we're, when we're deep into the SEC tournament or deep into into March Madness, and finding a way to win in spite of, whether it's Lanier waking up or in spite of the lack of that elite offensive player. It's going to be difficult, I think, in my opinion, to compete with the best of the best, with that recipe, without, some sort of offensive production. So again, hopefully, kind of like you're talking about, hopefully we continue to see some increased production, whether it be from the bigs or whether it be from the bench, Gainey, whoever it might be. So we'll keep a pulse on that, folks. Austin, any other thoughts overall on the Auburn loss before we kind of move into previewing the next big game that we've got coming up?
No, nothing really. No other thoughts other than it was encouraging. Like overall, it sucked. It sucked to get burned by the officials in the end, but it is an encouraging game. I think it means that we can win these kind of big games. Like just a couple different bounces, a couple different calls. Let's be real. This game would have went our way, and we'd have a very different outlook on the season. I think I already do have a different outlook on the season because it tells me that we can beat any team in the country. So I am encouraged overall by the performance of the game.
Absolutely nice to hear in spite of the loss, right? That's as close to a moral victory as I think I'll get, is being encouraged from the performance, even though it's not what you want in terms of the win-loss column. We're encouraged by the performance. So we'll, again, continue to keep an eye on the Great Value Joker watch. We'll continue to keep a pulse on Lanier and how he's performing. But ultimately, Austin, it don't stop. The season don't stop. This SEC gauntlet don't stop. We got another big game coming up in a few days against probably our biggest rival in basketball, them Wildcats, the blue team, right? And so no longer have Calipari. I always enjoyed kind of the yearly reminder that John Calipari got that Rick Barnes was his father. But
well, he didn't get that this year. It was just with Arkansas.
Exactly. He did. He'll still got it, just in a different context. So that's
Correct.
Good news. But obviously, it's a little sweeter when it's also against your rival. But what are the big headlines coming into this Kentucky game?
Well, Kentucky's on a 2-game skid. They're really in a rebuilding period, even though they're still ranked pretty high. I actually don't know where they're at in the new rankings. I don't know if you have that, Blake, but because my app hasn't updated. But anyway, they're on a 2-game skid. It's at home, dude. I think this is a game that, man, I would love to win. It's so nice beating Kentucky because, the best thing about beating Kentucky was always, when we started beating them in basketball under Rick Barnes, it was always the fact that their fans just hate Tennessee so bad. They think Tennessee's their biggest rival. We don't feel the same, Kentucky.
In all of
no,
sports.
Correct. That is correct. And that is not the case, Kentucky. Let me tell you. Tennessee fans do not care about Kentucky whatsoever. We do want to beat you all in basketball because you're considered this blue blood in basketball, even though we have owned you over the last few years. But we don't consider this like a big, oh, man, we got to beat Kentucky. No, we don't, because we've owned you in football my entire life. Now we own you in the sport you were supposed to be good at, but now we're better. So yeah, it would be nice to beat Kentucky again, to be honest with you. But yeah, dude, they have. I mean, listen, it's a tough SEC schedule. They lost to Vanderbilt, which made me feel better about the Vanderbilt loss. They also had a really tough game against Alabama. I mean, Alabama's a really good team. They're really good offensively, right? I mean, I would say their strength is offense and our strength is defense. So let's see how those two things collide. One thing that makes me feel better, we just got done talking about the Auburn game, is that, hey, we just talked about how Chaz has really been a difference maker at home this year in conference play. Like he's really a different player at home versus on the road. So listen, I mean, we're at home. So I think we're probably due for maybe a Chaz 20 to 30 point game. So that makes me feel better. So we'll be able to keep up with him in that way. But yeah, dude, I mean, listen, it's a game we want to win. It's a game, I think, if you want to stay in contention for a 1 seed, it's going to be, I think the road to the 1 seed at this point is pretty tough. But if you want to stay in contention for a 1 seed, got to go on a run. It's time to go on a run. And we're in the toughest part of our schedule right now. And we've alluded to that the last few weeks. Now we're there. We're there. We had the Auburn game, lost a very tough, heartbreaking game against Auburn. Now you have to come back a couple days later at home against Kentucky, one of the best teams in the country. And that's a storyline of itself, you know. Like, one thing intangible-wise I always want to look at with a team, after a heartbreaking loss, after a tough loss, how do you bounce back? How are you going to bounce back in this game? And we'll see.
We will see, indeed. To answer your question earlier, they are ranked 12th in the new ranking, so just a few spots below us. We came in at 8th, which that's a whole nother thing. I'm not going to get on that soapbox about the AP poll being and I get it. It's, you know, especially in basketball, right? Ultimately, the poll doesn't matter. Ultimately, it's just about, you know, your resume heading into the seeding. But we dropped we didn't drop any spots when we lost close to Vanderbilt. And then we come out and we beat number 14 at the time, Mississippi State, and lose a very close game on the road to the number 1 team in the country, but then drop 2 spots, which I get it. There's other team, you know, movement from other teams and things like that. But anyway, so we're at 8 and Kentucky's coming in at 12, coming into this matchup. So once again, it's not quite a top 10 matchup, but it is essentially, you know, just another marquee matchup between our program and Kentucky's program. To your point about their offense, they are currently ranked 3rd in the country in points per game at just over 88 points per game, and we are at 175th in the country at 75 points per game. So a fairly big spread there, and so I think, to your point, that's going to be a huge headline coming into the game in terms of what to look out for, and kind of the X's and O's is, okay, how does their offensive production match up with our defense? So it's going to be interesting to see. But you know what? If they do, you know, find a way to poke through our defense and they start dropping a lot of points, like you were talking about, that's where Chaz Lanier comes in. You hope that Chaz Lanier then can step up and do what, again, as Rick Barnes, you know, said a few weeks ago, do what he's paid to do, which is produce offensively, and hopefully we can kind of stay in it with that. But I mean, at the end of the day, though, you know, Coach Barnes, again, he always plays Kentucky tough, and so I personally expect our defense to win the day. I expect him to scheme up a good game, and I do not expect Kentucky to drop. I could eat my words. Maybe I'm jinxing this right now. Maybe I need to knock on wood. But I do not expect Kentucky to drop 88 points like they've been averaging.
Yeah, I agree, dude. I mean, Vegas agrees as well. I just looked up the spread. It's an 8.5 point spread in Tennessee's favor, which I thought was quite a bit. 8.5 seems big. I think Mississippi State was only like 5.5 or 6. Actually, no, I take that back. I think they were closer to like 13. Ignore that. Scratch that. But yeah, dude. I mean, Vegas expects us to win this game. I would love to win this game. It's again, it's always nice to beat Kentucky in basketball, since that's supposed to be what they're so special at. So yeah, dude. I'm looking forward to it. Update on if I was going in person or not. Callie got a ticket, but didn't get me a ticket, so I'm not going to the game, unfortunately. Brutal turn of events on the Vol Talk podcast. I thought I was going to be able to go to the game. She was like, "Oh, I'm looking for a ticket." Didn't happen. So unfortunately, we'll have to get the in-person reporting from Callie. I'll try to get her thoughts on the in-person game and bring it to the podcast.
Stop slandering me.
Folks, you are witnessing in real time the makings of marital issues. In Douglas households, sports are paramount, and so wow, this is. I feel like I'm on a nature documentary, when they just happen to experience on camera something that's it's just kind of a natural, it's interesting to watch. We're seeing the makings right here of an issue. I mean, what do you think? What does she
Also,
have to say for herself?
Did you see that she just made her Ball Talk debut? That she just walked in
well,
and she
that's
was
what I'm
like,
saying.
"Stop slandering me." Listen, dude. I mean, come on, man. Like, if you're gonna get a Kentucky ticket and you not get your husband a Kentucky ticket, that speaks for itself. It's whatever. It's fine. I am slightly broken by it, but I'll be watching on TV. Unfortunately, we'll not have the in-person live reporting that I was hoping I'd be able to have for that game.
Absolutely brutal, folks. Again, you're seeing in real time here on camera this issue arise. That's brother, I'm sorry to hear that. That's a difficult position to be in.
It is. It's tough.
That's tough. But you know what? We'll bounce back. Vol Talk is still gonna bring y'all the hottest, greatest commentary on Tennessee Vols sports on the internet.
Please do not put that on us.
Listen, only 53 folks have found that out so far, but it's kind of like us in buying Milicic stock early, right? These folks are, they're the early adopters of the Vol Talk podcast. They know that they're taking this stock to the moon, and so props to them. One way or another, whether we're in person or having to watch at home, we're going to bring you the hottest talk about the Vols. Austin, and speaking of talking about the Vols, kind of a slow week from my perspective in terms of news around other programs at Tennessee. Not a ton to talk about with the football program. I believe we already covered, or no, maybe we didn't cover. Did we cover yet the new offensive line pickup that we got in the portal?
We didn't. We got a Notre Dame guard,
Okay.
Interior offensive lineman. They, I've been saying how we need to fill 3 starting positions on the interior offensive line that we lost. We filled one with Wendell Moe, and it looks like we filled another with this Notre Dame player. So hopefully they can keep the pickups going in the portal. We need. I feel like we need a couple more starters that we need to fill. So. Yeah, man, pretty slow football week, but yeah, I mean it was a solid pickup. I mean that's my take on it. Solid pickup. He'll be competing for a starting job, and we need it. We need the. I mean we saw the O-line. It wasn't great at the end of last year, or really throughout last year. We're gonna need some guys to develop. We're gonna need some new guys to come in and play well, and we'll see, dude. If you can't tell by my tone, I'm still a little skeptical about it, but we'll see.
It's a nervous kind of chuckle about, hey, we're holding out hope. We're hoping that this offensive line can get shored up because ultimately you got an $8 million quarterback and, you need to be able to give him the best opportunity to succeed because it's well documented on this podcast that as the quarterback goes, so goes the football team. So you need some guys in there to protect him. And you know what? It is game maxim number 4 that you got to protect our kickers, our quarterback, our lead, and our ball game. And it starts with the offensive line protecting the quarterback. So nice pickup, like you said.
He put kickers into that?
He sure did. Believe it or not. There is kicking in the game of football, and before this day and age, and I would argue even somewhat this day and age, field position is critical, and that involves the kickers.
Don't get me started on all that, man. We'll be on here for hours.
We'll spare y'all that in this episode. Austin, any other news in terms of Vol sports that we need to cover tonight?
Not that I can think of, man. That's pretty much it. big things happening in the basketball world. We'll continue to bring updates to the football team, and baseball season's on the horizon. So I'll definitely jump into baseball season once that starts. I don't know how we'll do baseball season, how we'll balance that with basketball season. We'll see how that all plays out, but we'll figure it out at some point.
We'll figure it out. We just, we'll have a cadence and we'll cover whatever's happened since the last episode, and we'll pack it all in an episode. Again, whatever has transpired since the previous recording, we'll fit it in because, again, we're here to talk about Vol sports. And like you said, Vol baseball is definitely right around the corner. And in fact, quick shout out to appreciate everyone who voted in our most recent community poll. We're up to, I believe past 60 votes, if not more.
Heck yeah.
And I was kind of surprised, Austin. So obviously Tennessee football was the primary, or won the vote, with over 70% of the vote in terms of the favorite. The poll was, what is your favorite Vol sports team? And obviously football won that poll. It's not surprising. Most of our subscribers, we started in football season. Tennessee, we're still, football focused in general. But I was kind of surprised. I expected the Vol basketball team to come in second. It was actually the Vol baseball team. I don't know if that's folks riding the wave of the reigning national champs, or
I was going to say that helps.
Yeah, it certainly helps, but who knows? Maybe we got some baseball fans.
I'm a big fan of the baseball team, so I'm excited to talk about it. I will have to say, though, you said anything else to talk about. Shout out to Kim Caldwell. She had her baby, and she is actually going to be back coaching in the South Carolina game tomorrow. Unbelievable that she's making that quick turn. Actually, you know what? It might be tonight. That game might be tonight. Sorry about no coverage on that. I completely forgot it was tonight, but it's unbelievable, dude. She's like less than a week since she's had her child, and she's already back to coaching. Phenomenal. We'll see how they do. South Carolina is a tough team in women's basketball, man. Very tough team. And as you know, in women's basketball, and anyone who follows women's basketball, like the tier 1 of women's basketball is probably like 2 or 3 teams, and when they play like tier 2 of women's basketball, it can get ugly. So if we keep that game close, I'll be extremely happy with that. And if we can win that game, oh my Lord, dude, we might have to start covering women's basketball in here a little bit more if we can win that game. But so shout out to Kim, shout out to her kid, and shout out to the Lady Vols.
Look, man, I support it. Have the baby out there on the court. Why not? I mean,
why not, dude?
Bringing the baby out, take care of the baby while you're coaching a basketball game. Why not? I'm sure she'd be able to juggle both those things at the same time. Absolutely incredible.
Oh no,
for sure.
We have a live update on the game, and it's not going well. You all will know the outcome of the game, but because we're posting this tomorrow morning. But right now we're losing by 21. So it's not going well. But listen, dude, it's a rebuilding year. South Carolina, like I already mentioned, is really, really tough.
Yeah, we could have just left. We could have just left it at congrats on the baby.
We could have, but it's not going well. Maybe she should have taken an extra week off.
Brother, help me steer this ship back into a good spot so we can dock this bad boy. That's not
just kidding. We're winning. We're winning. It's fine. No, we're not. We're getting blown out right now, but it's okay. We'll bounce back.
That is not the kind of breaking live news that you want in the recording, but hey,
but we did it. It is the truth.
Sometimes the truth hurts, but again, like you said, shout out to her for having her baby, and wow, quick turnaround to be right back on the court. That's insane. So. But again, Vol baseball. Shout out to the Vol baseball fans. We're going to be covering that as well once it starts, and so we're excited for that, and excited to see that again. There are apparently some Vol baseball fans out there. I will say this too, Austin. That, there's a lot of Californians moving to this state. Okay, I'm not going to get on that soapbox. However, I don't know. They like baseball out there. I think. I'm not exactly sure what they like, but maybe that's why we've got a lot of baseball fans. Regardless, we're going to get y'all taken care of. We're going to cover Vol baseball. We're going to cover everything Vols. So, folks, this has been a review of the close loss to the Auburn Tigers on the road, 53-51 for our Vols against our former coach, Bruce Pearl. We previewed the game this coming week against Kentucky. It's going to be a big-time matchup, as it always is in basketball against Kentucky. So we're looking for a W there, and we'll see you on the other side of the Kentucky game. Until then, go Vols.
GBO.